Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Atheist Experience. That was David Byrne. Was it
Like Humans Do is the song, yeah.
We're live. It's Sunday, March 12, 2006. This is a live public access call-in television program, which is also available via podcast and MP3 download. So hello to all those people who are listening after the fact. As a live show, we'll have the number up for you shortly so that you can call in. We've got some announcements to get out of the way first. This is an opportunity for atheists to interface with the community and for the community to interface with us. You can ask questions and we'll be presenting issues to talk about and taking your calls. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road. Those are at 11:30 every Sunday except for the third Sunday of the month when we host a lecture series at the Austin History Center. The lectures begin at 12:30. The History Center is at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe, and this month's lecture is, who is it again? Oh, it's me.
You.
It's me this month. I'm going to do a lecture on the history of the biblical canon, kind of a quick walkthrough time and looking at what got in, what didn't, and why any of us should actually care. But in addition to this show, the ACA also sponsors the Nonprofits, which is a bi-weekly internet audio show. You can listen at freethoughtradio.com, and there's more information at nonprofitsradio.com. It's hosted by Jeff D., co-hosted by Dennis Loubet, and also features Russell Glasser and myself. And the next live showing will be March 25th. We did a live show yesterday, which was a lot of fun.
Yes, we did indeed.
In addition to the programs that we sponsor, we also have a number of social events. The information is available at www.atheist-community.org. That's our website. As one example, on Thursdays, we have an Atheist Happy Hour at Antonio's Tex-Mex on the southbound feeder road of I-35, just south of 183. That begins at 7:30, and after this program, which ends at around 6 o'clock, the cast and crew get together and we invite any atheist or atheist-friendly people to join us for dinner at Threadgill's on Riverside. We normally get there somewhere between 6:30 and 6:45, and any atheist-friendly people are welcome to join us. If you're coming down to preach or proselytize or provoke, don't bother. We'll have the number up for you in a minute. You can call us and do that on the air live. So without any further ado, Jeff D.
I have some additional announcements and one supplemental announcement from the ones that you just gave. For those who are interested in listening to the Nonprofits audio show, you can also go to the website www.nonprofitsradio.com, where past episodes are available for download, or you can hook up your
podcast.
Podcast is the word I'm looking for, thank you. But mainly I've got some neat atheist, free thought, and rationalist announcements from around the country and around the globe. On March 31st and April 1st, they will be conducting the 30th anniversary of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal and the inauguration of their Center for Inquiry building. The inauguration takes place on Saturday, April 1st at the Center for Inquiry in Amherst, New York. For information on that, you can email bkarr@centerforinquiry.net. That's BKARR at centerforinquiry.net. There will be a rally for free expression in Trafalgar Square in London on Saturday, March 25. This is a reaction to efforts by the policymakers, lawmakers in England to criminalize criticism of religion. And this is a reaction to that. The rally will take place between 2 and 4 p.m. The statement of principles published by the organizers of the rally reads as follows: "The strength and survival of free society and the advance of human knowledge depend on the free exchange of ideas. All ideas are capable of giving offense, and some of the most powerful ideas in human history, such as those of Galileo and Darwin, have given profound religious offense in their time. The free exchange of ideas depends on freedom of expression, and this includes the right to criticize and to mock. We assert and uphold the right of freedom of expression and call on our elected representatives to do the same. For more details on the March for Free Expression, you can go on the web to marchforfreeexpression.blogspot.com. The 32nd Annual National Convention of American Atheists is taking place at the Marriott River Center in San Antonio on April 14 to 16. Hundreds of atheists from throughout the nation will attend this three-day event, which includes a program of informative speakers, leadership training seminars, social events, and much more. There's also going to be, on Sunday morning, a formal debate between, I believe, a creationist and a scientist. For more information on that, you can go to www.atheists.org/convention. Scouting for All, which is the effort to encourage the Boy Scouts of America to rescind their ban on gay and atheist members, is having a protest rally and candlelight vigil at the BSA's annual national conference in Washington, D.C. on May 24th through 26th. For information on that, you can go to www.scoutingforall.org. And finally, the 4th International Rationalist Conference is scheduled to be held on December 26 to 29 of this year in New Delhi, India. Information on that is at, I guess you email conference@rationalistinternational.net.
All right.
I think it's all. Folks that listen to this show might not be aware that it's not just this little pocket of unbelievers here in Austin, Texas. That
there are more people than just you and I.
Yeah, all over the planet, man.
Holy cow!
In fact, here's my favorite statistic. According to statistics compiled by the United Nations, this is now several years old. I don't have more recent ones, but I doubt it's changed very much. If you take the word of fundamentalists who try to tell you that Catholicism is not really Christianity, then there are more atheists on the planet than there are Christians. Isn't that neat?
That is neat. We'll have a list of the events that Jeff was talking about posted up on the website probably by tomorrow. We'll get that done. Also, as another note for anybody who's wanting to call in, the number's up now. We won't be reading it out because this is also rebroadcast on Tuesdays without the number since we're not live. Feel free to call in, ask any questions. If you've got something we need to talk about or haven't addressed, you can do that. Anybody who doesn't get in, you can also email tv@atheist-community.org, and that email goes to all of the cast and crew of the show, and we'll be more than happy to address your questions offline if you don't want to get on the air or if you're unable to get on the air. So,
what do you got?
We got the announcements done. Well, I've got one other little announcement. Joe Zemecki, who's been working on the newsletter, wanted me to make sure I held up a copy of this month's newsletter.
We have a newsletter.
Which is available, of course, to all members, but I'm pretty sure you can get a copy if you wanted to ask for one. In this particular one, there's a really good book review by Russell Glasser on Michael Behe's Darwin's Black Box, which Russell's talked about that on the Nonprofits and on this program before, but it's an outstanding review, really concise and covers in detail the errors that Behe makes, as well as just really bad arguments that we hear all the time. I got little bits of news on a couple of things. There's a new fossil that's been discovered in China. This is actually a week or so old. This fossil actually turns back the clock on the age of mammals by almost 100 million years. So where we had originally, scientists had considered the rise of mammals around 65 million years ago, now we're looking at around 165 million years thanks to this fossil. And the reason I bring this up isn't to bash on any young earthers, or if you want to believe that the Earth's 10,000 years old, that's your deal. You're just not allowed to teach it to kids in schools. But the real reason for bringing this up is that it's a good demonstration of how science finds new evidence and changes its mind. changes what its position is. That's the core of science. We find new evidence that alters what our previous perceptions of reality were, and they begin to do those changes. You can't have that kind of change when you've got a dogmatic religion. I mean, it's not like anything we could ever discover is going to convince some people that God didn't create the world in 6 days about 6 to 10,000 years ago. And yet science can change as we learn more. I think that's worth noting every single time it comes up. There's a lot of people who try and claim that this is just a dogmatic science. You're just believing that stuff on faith too.
And when they're not claiming that, they're taking advantage of the honesty of science
to
try to portray science as something that is not worth paying any attention to because it changes all the time.
Yeah.
So, honest people, when they're dealing with subjects that are, very complex, where there's a lot of information to be absorbed, a lot of information to be learned, a lot of information to be processed, will tell you what their current understanding is, and as they learn and process more information, they will, if they're honest, they will update that, and that does not make the effort something that you should ignore. It makes it honest, and it's like, if you have two people that commit a crime and one of them confesses to his mistake, and we treat him with more respect than the guy who hides it and just pretends that he that he's innocent all along. That's something I think that religious people ought to take into consideration when they're forming their view of science.
And speaking of people who committed crimes,
hey.
I got a news item that Joe, the producer of our newsletter, actually sent off to me. Convicted thrill killer who was ordained as an Episcopalian priest while in prison has been granted parole by Arnold Schwarzenegger, the governor of California. James Trammell, the son of a former Green Beret, was a 17-year-old pupil at Santa Barbara Private School when he was convicted, along with a friend, David Kurtzman, of killing a drifter for what that victim's family said was pure entertainment. Essentially, he didn't do the actual stabbing. He convinced his buddy to do the stabbing 17 times of some drifter. But while he was in prison, he was visited by a female Episcopalian priest who led him to Jesus and helped him get a master's in theology, and he's now an ordained Episcopal priest, and well, they're in love, and so the governor decided, I think parole's probably a good thing for you. After all, you've got a priest job waiting for you when you get out, so go ahead and go.
Well, I do think there is such a thing as reforming.
Absolutely.
I think that can happen. I don't think religion necessarily has anything at all to do with it, but it could be that he's better.
Absolutely. When I was reading the story the first time, that's the first thing that popped into my head is that, if we're going to stick by what we've claimed, which is that, the prison system is for reform whenever possible, then if somebody has shown remorse and is reformed and we have a good reason to believe that they're no longer a threat to society, well, then, we should let them out because that's what we're saying we're doing.
It's just that, the evidence does not support the idea that because somebody turns to religion, that it indicates that they're no longer a threat to society.
Right. That seems to be what's happening a lot, that we have no really good way of telling whether or not somebody's reformed. So if they profess a religious belief and a conversion, that's the best measuring stick we seem to have. So as soon as they say it, they get out, which means that anybody that wants to is going to claim something like that, whether or not it's true.
And I think, unfortunately, from the perspective of religious people, we think they might want to think about the fact that their religion is getting cluttered up with all these ex-criminals that may well have only turned to religion in order to get out of jail easier.
Yeah. Well, let's start taking some callers. We've got Don on the line. How you doing?
All right. Have you gentlemen read new Playboy? I got it yesterday, and they have an article in their face.
No, I only look at the pictures, sir.
Yeah, me too. No, they have an article in there, Faith and Reason. It's by a Michael Ruse, R-U-S-E.
Uh-huh.
And he, very good article. You ought to read it.
Okay.
Get a chance. That's what I called to tell you about.
All right. You want to give us any details from the article?
What does he say?
Well, he's talking about evolution and creationism and intelligent design, and he's telling how ridiculous it is, and he's got several people in here that have wrote little quirks about different religions, the future of religion, the new science, the facts are facts, and the joke is on us, and you ought to actually you read it and then you can make up your own mind about it. It's quite long.
Okay.
So I thought I'd let you know. It's a good article.
What month issue is that?
It's this month.
Well, that's in the stands
April.
right now, but that doesn't necessarily...
April.
April.
Yeah.
Yeah, they usually, in magazines,
And it's right on the
they
front.
come
It
out
says
early.
the conflict between faith and reason. So
Yeah.
Well, thank you for giving me an excuse to go pick up Playboy.
I just got it yesterday, and I read it this morning, and that was my enlightenment to church, you know. So I thought maybe you guys would like to read it.
Yeah,
All
thanks
right.
very much.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, normally I have a subscription. I can't even remember the last time I actually looked at a Playboy, but I do know that, there's...
We have the internet now.
there's that standing joke about, I only look at the articles or I only look at the pictures and stuff, but it's had a history of really good reporting, and some stuff comes out in magazines like that you may not get on, the normal newsstand.
Yep. Speaking of books and things, you mentioned Russell's review of Behe's Black Box. I don't have I'm not prepared to do a review, but I want to alert everybody out there to a new book by Daniel Dennett. He is a philosopher who's written a lot on a number of different subjects, including free will and so on. And I've really liked his books before. His latest one is called Breaking the Spell, Religion as a Natural Phenomena. And basically what it is a book-length argument for why science ought to recognize that this human behavior called religion is fair game for scientific investigation as to why is it that people feel a religious impulse, what are the evolutionary origins of that, what are the actual effects on cultures of religiosity, and all those sorts of things. And it's been interesting. I found several interviews with him on the internet where the interviewers generally react from the perspective of he's attacking religion and wants to destroy it, which is not the stance he takes at all. As in fact, he repeatedly says, if religion is a good thing, the best way to find out is going to be by studying it. If it actually has good practical effects, the best thing to do is study it. In fact, he calls for, I don't know if he does this in the book, but in the interviews, when people asked him, what would you like to see happen next, he is calling for religious education in schools, not indoctrination in specific religions, but a very broad education of all students in the basics of the different religious beliefs and their histories. Because as far as he's concerned, the more people know about stuff, the better. So, that's
His
that.
book, this new book, Breaking the Spell by him, it's very similar, and I've heard comparisons of it to Sam Harris's newest book, The End of Faith, that they make very similar arguments and discuss similar topics. Since I haven't read them both, I couldn't possibly say which one is actually better. But they both discuss a lot of the same things, whereas Dennett's advocating perhaps comparative religions type courses and religious examination courses in public schools. Sam Harris's big push is towards let's remove this politically correct idea of hands-off of religious ideas and actually subject them to public debate and open criticism and mockery and let's actually discuss the issues, because if your belief system is unable to withstand open criticism, then it's probably not true. If you can't come up with evidence and reason to support your beliefs, and any critical examination of it is treated with this knee-jerk, oh my God, you can't do that. You can't draw a cartoon about my particular prophet, or you can't lampoon my beliefs. Odds are your beliefs really are kind of on a weak foundation. we talked yesterday. There was that accusation about watered down Christians.
Oh my gosh!
Have you got
this was on the. This was on the Yeah, we can go back to that. This is on the subject of that resolution in the Missouri House of Representatives, trying to lift up Christianity as deserving of special treatment in that state. In interviews, this is interesting. The language of the actual resolution says. There's like these different whereas clauses, and one of them is, whereas as elected officials we should protect the majority's right to express their religious beliefs while showing respect for those who object. And, of course, majorities don't need protection, but this is what this is all about. But there's this whole showing respect for those who object, right? People of different religions. And yet, in the article with interviews with representatives who are supporting this thing, I think the first thing out of this one guy's mouth is, where is it? He says, "I've truly enjoyed watching the liberal element of our state and nation come out squalling like scalded dogs in protest, being forced to unmask their watered-down Christian views, wrap themselves in the Constitution, and try to justify the view that the will of the minority should trump the will of the majority." Well, there's like 18 different things that are wrong with that paragraph, but I'm just going to pull out the one where he insults people who have what he calls a watered-down Christian view. But the resolution says you're supposed to have respect for people with different views. So what's up with that?
Yeah, and odds are when he's going to join in along with a lot of other people when calculating out exactly how many Christians there are to claim their 80% majority.
He's going to include
all those watered-down Christians who he just insulted. Oh, and Catholics, too. I mean, the Protestants will say all day long, most of them, that Catholics really aren't Christians. But they're going to say it. They're going to count those Catholics as Christians when it comes time to put up the numbers and find out what's what.
Yeah,
just unbelievable hypocrisy. But... yeah, the idea of this watered-down Christianity has come up a lot, and even Don Baker has talked about it on the show. You and I have kind of a similar position on liberal Christians, in that we're both willing to applaud them when they work towards sound, reasonable goals. There's people like the Reverend Barry Lynn who's a big advocate of the separation of church and state, and who's constantly speaking out about sound, reasonable, secular issues. Yet there's still this problem where, and I don't necessarily mean to imply that liberal Christianity is a gateway drug to fundamentalism, but they're still supporting.
I do say that, though.
You do. They're still supporting a religion which you can be as watered down in your Christianity as you want, but you can't escape the fact that your Bible specifically tells you that you can keep slaves and how to mark them and all these other atrocities and in fact the very idea of eternal torment for finite crimes and the sins of the father passing on down to the son, or maybe it doesn't, 4th generation, 10th generation, no generations. This big book of multiple choice, which for people who don't already possess a rational mind, who don't already possess critical thinking skills and skepticism, to say, I'm going to remain a liberal Christian, I think the natural tendency is towards a more fundamentalist belief. Hey, let's jump into Leviticus and go ahead and advocate the killing of homosexuals. It's just... It may seem absurd to say that somebody who becomes born again thanks to a liberal Christian proselytizing might eventually become one of these extremist fundamentalists like Fred Phelps. But basically, it's not that absurd. Everybody is different, and what beliefs an individual has is based on what their standards of evidence are and what their critical thinking skills allow them to process. And the quote that we were talking about earlier from, and I've forgotten the name, But without religion, you'd have good people doing good things and evil people doing evil things. But in order to get good people to do evil things, that requires religion. And you can... Stephen Weinberg, that's it. Thank you. But we've got more callers.
All right.
So let's go on to Julian. How you doing?
All right, how are you?
Pretty good.
Fine, Julian. How are you?
It's Julius. But anyway,
Julius. Sorry about that. That we just get what they write us from the control room. What's up?
well, yeah, I just had a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What made y'all become atheists? I mean, why did you choose that path?
Because I had some concerns about the religious beliefs that I...
Well, you're going to hell.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually kind of suspected that.
Yeah.
How many times have we been told we're going to hell?
I don't know.
I think the funny thing is that occasionally I'll get a caller who will remind me that I'm going to hell or tell me that I'm going to hell. And then on another occasion, I might get a caller who says that, I was a fundamentalist Christian for almost 20 some odd years. He'll say that, once saved, always saved. And he'll see me up in heaven, despite the fact that I spend every week on an atheist TV show.
Right. And then there's the liberal Christians who will say, whoa, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not. You can go to heaven as long as you're a good person. And,
Yeah.
that just all goes to show that they really don't have a single straight story about what that's all about. All I can say is the very idea that there could be a deity who would punish those of us who choose to think rationally and reject religion on that basis, torture us, punish us by tormenting us forever or sending us to a place where that will happen, and that other people worship that entity, makes me have a pretty dim view of those people.
Yeah, and the other thing that makes me have a dim view of the people of those people is that we have to actually cut them off before they get to the profanities that they're about to utter at us for no reason at all. But let's go on to Bill. How you doing?
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Bill.
Jeff, good to see you back.
Thank you.
Your comment a while ago about Governor Schwarzenegger's pardon of the Episcopal minister prompted me to wonder about Stanley Tookie Williams, who was executed a few weeks back.
Right.
Now, the minister, as you mentioned, really didn't show any outward signs of rehabilitation other than his profession.
Well, did he? I mean, you read a small excerpt from the
I have no
long
idea
article.
what all he demonstrated
We
other
don't-
than being a priest.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily know that. I'll just say, for the sake of argument, Nobel Prize became a minister.
Yeah, okay.
Right? I mean, maybe this guy is reformed, but the other guy not only reformed, but Tookie Williams not only reformed, but exhibited behavior and attitudes that won him a Nobel. Was that a Nobel Peace Prize for his children's books? Right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's my point, is that the guy really did demonstrate that he had changed his ways, changed his way of thinking,
Yeah.
set out and wrote books to children about the evils of being in gangs and the things that gangs do, and actually developed quite a long history of doing good work. And it just struck me that if anybody deserved it, not a pardon from prison and a pardon from execution, and yet he was put to death.
Well, you were asking how did, and this was from the note, how did the governor decide to do this? Actually at the bottom of the article, and I hadn't gotten this far, evidently he'd originally turned it down.
Turned down the pardon?
Turned down the parole.
Who, the prisoner or the governor?
The governor had originally turned down the parole for James Trammell. And then the Right Reverend William Swing, the Episcopal Bishop of California, accused the governor of being a 90-pound moral weakling for turning down this man's parole. And then he went ahead and gave him the parole.
What was the Episcopal minister's view on the Tookie Williams situation?
No idea.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Wondered if you wanted to comment some more.
Yeah, evidently,
Did religion play a part in this thing?
Well, obviously.
Or was it just the fact that the governor was accused of being a girly man?
Yeah, I think it may have nothing to do with the prisoner at all.
Since he was accused of being a girly man by an Episcopal, what is he? Bishop?
Yeah.
Episcopal bishop. It's hard to draw that distinction. We don't know.
Yeah.
But
I'm not a 90-pound moral weakling.
But on the other hand, I think there were, if I recall correctly from, months ago, there were religious figures coming out in support of pardoning Tookie Williams.
Yeah, I seem to recall the same thing.
That didn't fly. Why not? I just don't.
Maybe they
I
didn't
don't
call the
understand how
governor
some of these
names.
decisions are made. Yeah, that's right. That's the problem. Nobody accused his manliness.
Seems a thought. See you at Threadgill.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Take care.
Yeah.
All right, we've got John. How you doing, John?
How you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. I just wanted to refer to a couple comments you made earlier, and I was just hoping that when you do reference something in the Bible, that first that you refer also to the New Testament, because you mentioned the killing of homosexuals and things like that, and now the New Testament changed the old ways, and now a sin is a sin,
Hang
and
on.
all fall short of the glory of the God. So
hang on.
it's about love. It's about Christ's love for us. So it's about acceptance of everybody, because we all have sinned.
All right, hold on just a second.
Right.
I understand what you're saying. Having been a fundamentalist Christian for more than 20 years, I have some really good views on this as well. And one is, if you have a specific commandment, a specific order, let's say, doesn't matter whether it's Old Testament or New Testament, you're instructed that this is the way things should be. You can't use a later general precept to say this has been overruled. You can't. There's nowhere in the New Testament, which Leviticus, was it 20:13 or 22:13, that says if a man lies with another man, he's committed an atrocity, he's an abomination, and should be killed. There's nothing in the New Testament that says that rule has been overturned. And to use something like turn the other cheek, or we're all sinners and love the sinner and hate the sin, to say that rule no longer applies, seems to me to be dishonest. It's like the Old Testament makes up 90% of the Bible, and a lot of Christians want to focus on the New Testament, chuck out the Old, but they want to keep the Ten Commandments, saying that, well, we've got a new covenant with Jesus. Well, yeah, the words attributed to Jesus say that he came not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it, and that not a jot or tittle of the Old Testament law would be changed. And yet, for some reason, there's a justification that we can chuck out a lot of things like, keeping slaves and killing people who work on the Sabbath and killing homosexuals. But the first 10 of those commandments we really need to hang on to. So it's kind of an issue of trying to have it both ways.
I think it's great how you can use maybe some of those, like do not kill, do not covet, as a guideline. But let's say somebody has killed. Now that's where Jesus comes in, and even if you have killed before, if you truly accept with your heart and you accept Jesus into you, you can be forgiven for that sin, and that's why it was so revolutionary that one man took all our punishment that we deserve for falling short. For if you have a just God, and even if you have sinned once, you fall short from His glory. And
I understand what you're saying, but you've kind of gotten away from the point of how you determine whether or not which rules actually do apply. You can not to cut you off, but you can't just get on here and preach about the glory of Jesus without actually substantiating it and actually answering questions about go ahead.
And it occurs to me that, there was a context in which Matt referenced those things in the Old Testament. His point was that even Christians who reject the horrific parts of the Old Testament still carry around the whole Bible that has all that stuff in it. And what we were talking about at that time was that even those Christians who take a more modern, more liberal view of right and wrong, and a more liberal, modern interpretation of the Bible's message, are still glorifying the horrific older stuff, even if they believe it's been overturned. I don't see them editing that stuff out of their Bibles. And until that happens, we're going to be rather suspicious of the impact of the religion because it still carries all those messages.
Could I clarify also that it's a historical document, and many things have been verified from that. Cities, archaeology has verified a lot of those things, and those are just stories that maybe at that period of time worldwide, maybe there was slavery. It's not necessarily that we accept it. We definitely
No. Sorry, dude.
You're absolutely, utterly, completely wrong.
In the Old Testament, it clearly lays out the rules and regulations for slave ownership.
It tells you
in the New Testament. Nowhere in the New Testament is there any clear statement the owning of other human beings is wrong and you should not do it. Nowhere.
Yeah, you really need to dig back into your Bible because the Old Testament not only specifically tells you who you can and cannot enslave, it tells you how much you can charge for them and how to mark them by holding their earlobe up to the door jamb and driving a spike through it.
These are not secular.
To love your neighbor. That says everybody. That includes everybody.
See that now you
can love slaves. I believe Thomas Jefferson did that. But the point is you're trying to use these generic general platitudes as if they were clear rules against things like slavery, and they're not. They're just not.
I think it's very clear when it says love your neighbor as yourself.
I agree.
You know why you object to slavery, sir? You don't object to slavery because the Bible clearly told you that slavery is wrong. You object to slavery because you live in a more civilized culture than they did in biblical times, where, after thousands of years of human history, we have learned that is a bad way to treat each other. Right. And you're merely applying the general the instruction in the New Testament to love everybody to that and saying, that just supports what you would have believed anyway. We're not Christians, and we think slavery is wrong.
Yeah,
we don't have any book to give us to give us any of these good or evil instructions.
And I believe that since we're all created by God, we all have a part of Him inside of us. We have that.
Which part?
Huh?
Which part of God?
That morality, that way of thinking that we know right from wrong. I think that stems from our Creator. So somebody that may not have ever heard about the Bible may have some good.
Can I ask you something?
They may not be saved.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
You recognize that we live in a culture where not everybody's a Christian, right?
Right.
Okay. And surely you see that it would be best if everybody exhibited some basic understanding of morality, right?
Sure.
Okay. What are you doing going around telling people who aren't Christians that they have no basis for morality?
Well, I think he actually said something different. He said that everybody in the world has this little piece of God which makes them moral.
No.
They just don't realize that it's coming from God.
If you go around telling people that the reason why you want to do moral things is because you have these feelings that God gave you, and they don't believe in your God, what you've done is confused that person morally. Now, those of us who are atheists who have spent some time thinking about this have realized there are perfectly valid reasons for moral behavior that have nothing to do with God's. But it strikes me as very counterproductive for Christianity to try to lay claim to the source of moral understanding, because what you do then is you're making it difficult for people who live in this culture and aren't in your religion. You shouldn't be going around telling people that morality comes from your God, and if they don't understand that, then they're confused. That's bad, I think.
Well, yeah, I disagree just because
You
of
disagree?
my beliefs. Right.
So you're cool with going around teaching the culture in general that the only basis for morality is what your God says, right?
No, I believe
And
some
then-
things. I believe some things can be learned, for example, from your parents. But I think your conscience is that unexplainable thing that you have there. I think that does come from your Creator, since you're created in His image.
Well, yeah, that's fine. You can think that. That's fine for you to think privately, right? The point is, you're talking to a couple of atheists. We don't
Right.
think that God of yours exists, right?
Okay.
And you're telling us that our moral impulses are coming from Him. Well, we don't believe in Him. So
Yeah,
what are
it's
we
a
supposed to do with
discussion.
these moral impulses? Now, we have thought about it. Matt and I are actually not confused. The point I'm trying to make is that there are a lot of people who aren't in your religion, who have the moral impulses, but don't believe in your God. And when you go around telling them that it's your God that's giving them the moral impulses, all you're doing is confusing those people instead of just, letting them accept, wow, I'm a moral individual and I'll act those ways that, seem morally justified to me.
Well, I was discussing something that I believe. I wasn't attacking anybody, so it's just part of our discussion. So,
right.
and something I do appreciate from what I've heard today is that you tell people to go read books and research more into it. I believe there's a lot of unanswered questions. For example, by the Darwin theory, how the whole universe started, and a lot of those questions that are answered, people should look into it for themselves, read books, and make their own judgment, because I think overwhelmingly there is evidence for a divine being.
Well, see, now that's great. I can appreciate what you're saying and what you're thinking. If you believe that there's overwhelming evidence for belief in a divine being, can you provide some examples?
I'm working on my study of that as well. As somebody that's working on their study, I would just encourage everybody to do as well, because there's so many references out there, and there's so many unanswerable questions that when you hear of these debates between atheists and Christians where, one side or the other is stumped, and I think everybody should just look into it and look into these resources and know that
I agree with you.
Really your life is at stake here.
Maybe,
Oh, hey,
maybe. You're making an
what?
assumption there.
Our lives are at stake? How? How?
Let me make one point.
No,
Hang on.
I'd like you to clarify that point that you just made.
That's
What do you mean our
clarify.
lives are at stake?
That's what I'm going to clarify.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to the atheist view. If you're atheist, you're going to die, and I don't know what you believe, but maybe nothing happens. If you're in a Christian, let's say there is a God, you die,
yeah.
and there might be consequences. If you're a Christian, you die, and you may have favorable consequences. So if there is a chance that your eternal life is at stake, you should involve a lot of time figuring out what is the right
here's
thing.
the problem. Here's the problem with what you're saying, okay? I have no reason to think that any of those consequences you're talking about are real. No reason whatsoever. Now, you, of course, believe in the God, right? You believe that there's the God that's gonna punish people like me forever just for not signing up to be in your club, right? You believe in that, but I don't believe in that guy. So when you come at me saying, here's this horrible thing that might happen to you, I don't have any reason to agree with you that might happen. You have to prove that your God exists first. You shouldn't be coming at me with this threat that if your God exists, then I'll be punished, so I should take him seriously. No. Explain to me why rationally I should take him seriously. Then if you want to tell me that he's the kind of guy that's going to send those that don't believe in him to be tortured forever, then I might actually take that seriously, but I'll tell you where I'll take that seriously. My response will be, well, then that's an evil being
And in
that I
addition,
wouldn't worship even if I did believe in him.
Well, I didn't use those strong words. My only point was,
I don't care how. No. You brought up the threat.
Well,
right?
actually,
it's
you
the
used-
threat of hell. You brought it up. Take responsibility for the words that came out of your mouth.
okay, and my point was, if the Bible, who has stood the test of times, there is an inkling of hope that there might be a God, and I'm just encouraging people to look for themselves.
Okay, now hang on just a second. Now you're saying there's an inkling of hope that there might be a God. And just a minute ago, you said that there was an overwhelming reason to believe in a divine being.
But that's me. That's for me. I'm saying.
Well, yet you
I'm saying
claim
for everybody in the whole world.
You claim that there was this overwhelming evidence, yet when asked to provide a single example, you couldn't do that.
Right. What you provided was the threat of hell.
Well, yeah, what you did was a little modification on Pascal's wager in that if an atheist dies, there's two possibilities: either there is a God and you're going to hell, or there isn't a God and we just all die and we both win. But the fact is, what if you're wrong? What if you end up standing in front of somebody else's idea of God, or no God? There's a lot of other possibilities, and the idea that you should just go ahead and believe is kind of like a way out of possible eternal torment is kind of absurd. Wouldn't any real reasonable, super intelligent divine being actually be more likely to realize that you're believing is like a con?
I think what you're saying right now, I'm not trying to attack anybody. I'm just trying to look into resources. That was my main point. And I apologize if I sidetracked.
And that's good. It's not your fault that your religion is geared up to threaten non-members like us. That's not your fault. You didn't make that up. But that is your religion that you're in.
I'm just saying there is overwhelming archaeological evidence out there.
For what?
Verified. For example, I just heard on the radio a couple days ago that, I forget the specific reference to the town, but that town had never been found, and people thought it was just a town that didn't exist, even though it was in the Bible. And at some point,
can't name us the town.
Excavations confirmed that town had been found.
Okay, I'm happy for you, but did you know that the town of Troy from the Greek story of the Trojan War was believed to just be mythological until it was found, I think, back in the 1800s? So just because a story references places that we didn't know for a fact actually ever existed, and you find out later there's some evidence that they did, doesn't prove anything else about the story is true. It's not like there's a Zeus who throws thunderbolts just because in the 1800s an archaeologist actually found the city of Troy. You understand?
Right,
that's not evidence. That's not evidence of any of the supernatural claims of the Bible.
Yeah, nobody argues.
And I'm not saying there was just one found. I'm in the middle of my study. I think most people would appreciate.
But that's not even one. That's the point.
Nothing.
That isn't even one.
Nobody claims, or at least nobody reasonably claims, that the Bible doesn't mention real places. I mean, we know that it mentions real places. So do lots of other fictional books. They mention real places. And we've talked about before the Spider-Man example. Spider-Man lives in New York. If 2,000 years from now, New York no longer exists, and an archaeologist discovers the remains of New York and identifies it there, does that all of a sudden mean that Spider-Man is real too? Of course not.
Right, and you're just focusing on one thing. Again, I'm in the middle of my study. Most people that are listening to this aren't going to be these great people that are way in their PhDs in their study. I'm saying
I understand that, but if you come in,
I don't have a PhD, dude.
And I don't either. But if you come in and make the claim that you not only believe something, but you feel that there's overwhelming evidence to support your belief, and yet you can't provide any, then I think what you're probably doing is believing something because it feels good, and hoping to fit other evidence around as supporting it in your own, view, whereas there isn't actually evidence to support it.
And I've read some things that I'm on the spot. I can't think of the specific arguments.
Fair enough.
That's fine.
But there are the Dead Sea Scrolls and all these what I read was, if I'm saying it correctly, that the Bible has the most overwhelming support by manuscript evidence throughout time that is an actual inspired word of God that has not changed over time.
I invite you to come to the lecture on the 19th, because in addition to covering the history of the canon, I'll actually be touching a little bit about some of the claims around the Bible, like what you're saying. A lot of it is, there's no book has ever had as many copies in existence as the Bible. Well, so what? the number of people who believe something is not evidence for the veracity of that belief. At one time, everybody believed, or nearly everybody believed, that the earth was flat and that the sun orbited the earth. That's not evidence. All it is evidence that people believe something. And, you hear claims about these disciples and apostles who willingly martyred themselves. Well, first of all, we don't know that any of them actually existed. We don't have real proof that they were martyred, although we have some evidence to believe that's possible.
And second of all,
regardless, it doesn't matter. There were 900 people who believed that Jim Jones was telling the truth, and they drank that magic Kool-Aid
Them too.
and died. How many people believe something is no testament to whether or not the belief is warranted. We're going to move on to some other callers. I thank you for calling. You're welcome to call back as well. I don't want to tie up the lines for too long with one person. You can email tv@atheist-community.org if you want to have other discussions. And instead of just arguing, I may have links to good information that would help you in the studies that you're doing. And you're also invited to come down to that lecture on the 19th. Thanks a lot, Don.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
And as a reminder, for any atheist-friendly people who'd like to join us for dinner after the show, we're going to Thread Gills down on Riverside. We'll be there somewhere between 6:30 and 6:45.
Yeah.
There's way too many issues. And
I was a little unfair to John.
Well,
going after him on an issue he had only kind of lightly touched on. But, he didn't want to go there, but, these issues that we're bringing up, even if he didn't bring them up, he's in the religion where those issues are an issue. And, it's relevant.
I've been in a similar position to John at some point where, I definitely believed and I thought that there were good reasons for my belief, but as I actually investigated the reasons, which I thought were all really good evidence, if you're a believer and you read something like Josh McDowell's Evidence That Demands a Verdict, well, that's just amazing, shining super proof of everything you believe until you actually start looking into the claims that are being made in there and the quality of the evidence that's supposed to be supporting your belief. And you'll find that it's pretty much non-existent.
It's generally a good idea to look up critical reviews of the stuff that you read that you think is so convincing, because if all you read is the stuff that you think is convincing, then you could be getting duped.
Yeah, you gotta listen to both sides.
There's plenty of resources on the internet that take book, for example. If you type in, Josh McDowell's Evidence That Demands a Verdict, for example, and the word atheism or atheist or critique or things like that, you will find a number of extremely detailed refutations of what he has to say.
Including one at that link that's on your screen right now, infidels.org, and if you want a shortcut, infidels.org/library has just tons and tons of books covering all sorts of claims about religion and the Bible and different religions as well. But
so,
let's go on to, is it Leia?
Yep.
How you doing?
Hi.
Doing good.
What do you got for us?
Just the previous caller made a comment about how the entire Bible has been recorded so carefully, and all the Bibles say the exact same story as one of his bases of proof of Christianity being correct.
Yeah.
And I just had to kind of laugh a little bit. Besides the King James Bible being so ridiculously messed up, and you've got the NEV and then this copy and then that copy, and there's all these different forms of what we call the Christian Bible, and yet, the Torah for the most part at least has stayed the same, but there's also the Quran and there's other religious writings from all of these other people, and they can't all, everyone says, oh, it's one God under many faces and all this kind of stuff, and it simply can't be true.
Yeah, if there's inherent contradictions, they can't all be right. But I'll tell you one thing, they can't all be wrong.
Very possible. But I just wanted to sort of make that comment out to any Christians who might be listening. Just not all the Bibles are the same, and not even all forms of Christianity are the same. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like 1,000 denominations of Christianity.
Yeah. So an interesting small story just about the inabilities for some Christians to look outside their own religious groups. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I made about this before, I'm Jewish, and I work with students, one of whom saw the Star of David around my neck the other day and asked me what kind of Catholic I was. Because she didn't understand that wasn't a special cross.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, I just thought that was a little amusing.
What
I'd like to
kind
share
of
that.
Catholic? Wow.
Yeah. Now, what kind of Christian are you? What kind of Catholic are you?
Yeah, wow.
I don't know, maybe it was an accusation, like, what kind of Catholic are you to be wearing a Star of David around your neck?
No, I was more inquisitive. They actually, down in this particular school district, I'm discovering they really don't know anything except Christian religions.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, that's all I wanted to share, but you guys are doing a great job on the air, and just keep on pressing the information to the public. So.
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for calling. See you later.
Yeah, John also brought up the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Right.
And I don't know what he's read about the Dead Sea Scrolls, but from what I've read about the Dead Sea Scrolls, they don't strongly support the idea that the Bible is this perfect, unchanging document.
Right, yeah, actually they raise a lot of controversy. They were written and put away around 200 to 300 BCE, and there's a big debate going on as to whether or not we should rely on the Masoretic texts as being the most reliable, or the Septuagint. And I got in a big argument with some people the other day who were saying that the King James Version is the only authorized version by God. So, and yet, the King James Version is based on the Textus Receptus, which was done by a Catholic humanist named Erasmus, who had so many errors in the first version. He was trying to beat somebody else to having a full Greek copy. He had to kick out a second version real quick, and then the third version included some extra stuff that nobody can quite figure out exactly where it came from, apart from perhaps influence from the Catholic Church. He did back translations from the Latin Vulgate. So let's save some of that for the lecture, and we'll go on to Brandon. How you doing?
How you doing, sir? How y'all doing today?
Good.
I just had a question, man. Basically, I just turned the channel and I see what you got on television, and I was wondering what is the basis of. I know you said earlier that you were a fundamental Christian for about 20 years. That's what you say, I believe. I just wanted to know what's the basis of y'all belief. What made y'all change y'all thoughts?
You want to tell your story again?
Go ahead.
We do this pretty much every show.
Yeah. There's also a whole show, actually, where the first 30 minutes I spent telling my particular story. And you can download it from the website, but we'll hit them real quick.
Yeah, basically, I can't claim to have ever been a really deeply, seriously committed believer. But I was sort of a default believer that didn't strongly question anything. Well, a time came in my life when I did start questioning things, and I credit Spider-Man, who Matt referenced earlier. Not that I believe there's a Spider-Man, but that comic book character has a sort of catchphrase, which is, with great power comes great responsibility. And I started thinking about the behavior exhibited by the God of the Bible and how it didn't strike me as, infinitely responsible. Because he'd do things like flood the entire earth and then say, oh, I'm sorry, and put up a rainbow. You'd think that a God who knows everything and is all-powerful and all-wise and all-loving and all those things, if it was going to be a mistake or a bad thing for him to flood the whole world, he wouldn't have done it in the first place and then had to apologize. And then, of course, the whole Jesus thing, where he goes through this rather elaborate, weird stunt to concoct an excuse for forgiving mankind for sins that, for the most part, they didn't even commit. We're talking about original sin here in Adam and Eve. So it didn't all make a lot of sense, and he didn't strike me as a guy who was acting with as much wisdom and responsibility as he should, given that he's omnipotent. But I had a lot of trouble actually going so far as to rejecting the belief. For a while I struggled with, maybe it's the way the Bible's interpreted that is wrong, and really God never did any of those things. Or, maybe that's just made up stories, but there really is a God who's like that. And mostly what kept me from coming to my final conclusion was I was raised to believe in a God who really deserved my complete and utter unquestioning respect, and every time I started thinking critically about what the religion was telling me, I would get this feeling of, nervous fear that I was doing something wrong. Well, one day it struck me that no God who I could possibly respect would have given me a brain capable of thinking these thoughts and then punish me for using it. So that relaxed me. I was able to think clearly. By the end of that day, I realized that I didn't actually believe any of it, and I was an atheist. That's my story.
And I went through a lot of things that are similar to what Jeff did. In briefly, after spending 8 years or so in the Navy, they'll get it.
Okay.
They don't need to see me to hear me. After spending 8 years in the Navy, I decided to reinvestigate my faith and my beliefs with the hope of possibly going back to school and entering seminary. And one of the things that I felt was important, having been raised as Southern Baptist and everything else, is and I believe it's 1 Peter 3:15, where believers are instructed to be ever ready to defend the faith to anybody who asks, to provide a reason for why they believe. And I had tons of reasons. I mean, it just, I'd gone through all of the various Christian apologist arguments, and they just certainly seemed like the right, good answers. And it was when I was looking through these, trying to piece together the best way to say exactly why I believed, I started finding out, that's not really an answer at all. And, that one's just not right at all. And it was a period of about two and a half, almost, it's never stopped. I mean, I continue to do this. It's like a perverse hobby. I love reading about religion, studying religions, and Christianity in particular. But eventually, there was just no reason or evidence or anything else left to possibly sustain even a whiff of belief. And investigating and studying things, philosophy and where can your morals come if God isn't the source of morality and things like that, eventually established a worldview that makes sense and is rationally supported and doesn't require any kind of supernatural intervention or unproven claims.
Right. Well, I understand that, man. That's really it's a logical way of thinking, and I went through I'm a Christian. I'm a born again believer, but I also think logically. I understand the point of views y'all express because I go through those same thought frames, those same thought processes, and I don't judge y'all according to that because I know that that's just the way we are, man. We think logically. We're intelligent creatures, and I believe God made us that way. But my basis of belief is simply that God has based us or He's given us, y'all know. A freedom of choice. He's given us free will, and it's basically what I believe is that the basis of the Christian walk is simply by faith. All the answers are not going to be clear for us mankind choosing. If it was right in your face, then God would say, okay, He didn't want robots, so He didn't put it into our minds that I'm only God, I'm the only one you shall serve. So,
let me stop you right there for just a second, because I did something very similar, and this is just something for you to think about.
Okay.
A lot of times we hear this argument about free will of God couldn't possibly demonstrate Himself to us, obviously, because He requires that we have faith, that we have this demonstration of, from my point of view, blind faith. First of all, somebody who's omnipotent and omniscient certainly doesn't need to make such an odd set of rules. But the idea that we couldn't possibly still have free will if we knew that God existed is absolutely refuted by the fact that Satan, by Christian theocracy or Christian dogma, has absolute knowledge of God and yet refused and turned his back on God. So the free will argument for belief in God, completely unfounded.
But I don't understand why you think that. What is the basis on that thought? Why do you believe that Satan
does Satan have free will?
No, I mean, like, say...
No, that's the question, sir.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying, okay, in the same way, say that a man believes, say like y'all believed at first, y'all had a belief system in God. Where did that come from? Maybe y'all brought up that way, or maybe you just said, well, something has to be greater. Maybe it hadn't been God, Jesus, it might have been anything, but you believed that there was a greater power. Okay. Now, this Satan being, just like a man, can know the truth and simply say, you know what? I don't like those ways. I don't agree with that path. So I'm going to go my own way.
And that's what refutes the free will argument that you brought up.
Well, I mean, it's not really refuting free will. I mean, he had the free will to choose what he wanted to do.
Hang on. But that's the thing. I mean, you said God doesn't want robots.
Right.
That's why it's not absolutely clear to everyone that God exists, and that he set things up that way on purpose so we'd have the free will to either believe in him or not, right?
Right.
Okay, well, as Matt pointed out, if Satan has free will, and if that argument is true, Satan would have to if he knows that God exists, that would mean he wouldn't have the free will to reject him.
Why do you say that?
We must not be understanding your argument, because I think that's obvious.
I mean, this is the basis of everything right here. I mean, Satan turned his back on God. Yeah, he might have known who God was,
so a
but
human
that doesn't mean
being,
that he has to worship him.
And therefore, a human being with clear knowledge of the existence of the God could do the same thing.
Exactly.
Which means that your original statement.
How do you explain that the God doesn't bother to make his existence clear to mankind, so that everybody would know? We don't know that he exists. Why not?
He does. He does exist. I know.
No. But we don't know. How come we don't know that?
You do.
We're
know
not.
that.
No, we don't
We
know.
don't.
That is one of the big lies in the Bible, where there's Romans, where Paul says.
Let me state this. How come
hang on. I'm going to make my point. Right. That's one of the most annoying lies in the Bible from the perspective of atheists. There's people like us who, in fact, do not know that he exists. Right. In fact, I don't even. My wife had emotional feelings that there was probably a God, and eventually recognized that as not evidence. But I don't even have those feelings. I've never had a sense that, yes, there's definitely got to be some greater thing. I haven't rejected something that I had. I never really had it. When I was religious, when I was in the Methodist Church, I went along with it because I had never questioned. But I was only involved because I was raised to be there. I never had a personal knowledge that there was a God. I have not rejected it. I just don't see any evidence. So.
Well, can I give you my personal testimony of how?
No, that's not the issue. The issue is you brought up the free will argument, and we've refuted it, and it's now your turn to recognize. It's now your turn to admit that it's been refuted. Huh?
Because this isn't a show where you can call in and give your personal testimony. Find a religious show that does that. If you actually want to discuss the issues, see, you made the claim that God can't demonstrate himself to us because then that would violate our free will. And as soon as we
demonstrates himself to us daily.
No, he doesn't. We've never seen it.
When you wake up in the morning, how do you wake up in the morning? What wakes you up in the morning?
My alarm clock.
Your alarm clock? Okay, tell me this. If you were dead, would your alarm clock wake you up?
If I'm dead, nothing.
If you were dead, with that alarm clock, no matter how many times it buzzed, would you wake up?
No.
No, you would not. Why?
Because I'm dead.
Because you're dead. So does your alarm clock wake you up?
Not if I'm dead.
What are you talking about?
Your alarm clock does not wake you up.
I can't be woken up if I'm dead. Where are you going with this?
I'm asking you a simple question. You're saying that your alarm clock wakes you up.
Explain why this simple question supports your argument. I don't get it.
Because this is a basis in belief that there is a God. There has to be a God.
What, is he the alarm clock? I don't get it. What are you talking about?
Oh, there has to be a God because otherwise he couldn't wake you up when you were dead.
No.
What the?
There's a God because, well, before y'all try to rationalize making a joke out of it, listen to what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
It's the same way I'm giving y'all respect and y'all tell me y'all thoughts. Let me tell you mine.
Yeah.
If you didn't wake up in the morning, you'll be dead, right?
No.
If you didn't wake up, you would not be dead?
No.
Just because I don't wake up doesn't mean I'm dead.
Dead is not asleep. Dead and asleep are two different things.
Let me change that up.
Okay.
If your alarm clock was going off and you were dead, that alarm clock would not physically wake you up.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you're telling me that the reason that you wake up in the morning is because the alarm clock wakes you up.
No, wait a minute. Hold it.
Is that not what you said?
He has an alarm clock. I don't set my alarm clock.
So how do you wake up?
When my biological processes have got enough rest, or when my cat jumps on me.
And you wake up.
Yeah.
Okay. Now.
But again, I am only capable of waking up because I happen to be alive. I don't understand the whole death part of this. Please explain.
Well, how do you have life? Who gave you life?
Okay. Why are you asking who? Why does there need to be a who?
Okay. Well, what gives you life?
What gives me life?
What gives
well,
life?
Life is a complex biological process, and those happen in nature, and I'm one of those processes.
Okay. Now, where did mankind come from?
Mankind evolved from more primitive hominids.
And where did the more primitive hominids come from?
Okay, let's cut to the chase and
I'm
go
cutting
to
the chase. I'm asking you questions.
abiogenesis.
I want to know what the basis of y'all thought. So please explain to me.
Okay, there's a chain of evolution back to the first living cell.
How do you know that?
That is what science has discovered through careful, reasoned examination of the evidence.
So basically, it's reason. It's not an actual fact. It's a reason.
Well,
there's a reason on why you believe the fact that you
there's
believe.
no reasoning
The basis of I'm telling you this is because...
Dude, Matt has cut your mic again.
I just put you on hold. There's a chain of evidence, factual evidence. It's a combination of reason, data, logic, all of it together.
Yeah, we're not talking about reasoning in a vacuum. We're talking about reasoning from the position of the available evidence, right? Not just making stuff up and making it internally consistent. That's religion. Religion does that. Religion says, here's some completely unsupported basic assumptions, and now let's think about how that all has to work together to, what all the consequences of that are. No, science is not the same thing.
All right. I put you on hold again. We talked about this actually at the beginning of the show, about how science is able to change its mind and isn't this dogmatic thing which a lot of religionists want to claim that it is. It's an evaluation of the available evidence and a conclusion drawn upon that. Now, you can continue your argument backwards from where did man come from, where did, what the planet, blah, 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 all the way back to what created the Big Bang, and then say God and say, whoops, nothing had to make God. Well, that's one assumption. But the other thing is that even if everything that we know is wrong, even if the data that we've collected and come up with a theory of evolution which explains the origin of species, not necessarily, it doesn't actually explain the origin of life at all, that's abiogenesis, another field. Even if all that's wrong, even if we have no answers, there's still no good reason to say God did it. You actually, if you're going to use God as an answer, and God, by the way, is nothing but a huge non-answer, you have to actually supply some evidence to support what your belief is. Now, we have evidence that supports the theory of evolution. You can't just say that if tomorrow we find that everything we know about the theory of evolution is wrong, God wins by default. Because God is still an unproven assertion. Completely. Oh, he hung up. Boy, that reason's a bitch, isn't it? Go to talkorigins.org. There's all kinds of facts and information about evolution and other things, but really this is a mishmash. And on the one hand, you try and take a philosophical argument about the existence of God, basically the cosmological argument or the teleological argument, whatever, and build that direction, and then refute evolution. And you're doing all of this while claiming that you're being logical and exercising reason, and yet, much like the other caller who felt that there was an overwhelming abundance of evidence, you can't provide any.
Name any.
And yet, I can walk into a museum, pretty much any natural history museum, and point to lots of evidence that supports evolution. And also, I'm allowed to change my mind when new evidence comes along because I'm not bound by dogma. So if we find out that evolution's wrong, guess what? I can say, I was wrong. I have no problem saying I don't know what the answer is, or I was wrong before, or I've changed my mind. Try getting God to change his mind.
Well, we don't believe in that, God.
Right,
try to get somebody whose views are based only on faith, and faith is this process of convincing yourself that something is true without any actual evidence or in the face of blatant disconfirming evidence. Try to get that person to change their mind. That's difficult.
I was being a little metaphorical.
I gotcha.
But let's go on to Chris. How you doing?
Is it me?
It's you.
It's
finally,
you.
Sir.
Oh, I finally made it. Yay.
What's up?
Yeah, well, first of all, I tried to call last week, and I got, in queue to get on, because you had a topic last week, and I wanted to talk about the topic, about something in Texas that's happening, but sort of the same thing happened today where all these people call you guys, and they just, like that last caller,
you guys I mean, I know you're trying to be nice and, have a conversation or a discussion with these people, but there's no point. I mean, that guy wasn't good. He only called for one reason, and that was to prove you wrong that, God exists and all this other stuff.
Okay,
right?
but caller, I disagree with you. There is a reason to have those conversations.
Well, yeah, but
and that's because there are people who are in the middle. Not everybody has either accepted religion dogmatically on faith or rejected religion after having carefully thought about it. A lot of people are in the middle where they don't really have a position, and they deserve to hear both sides. And that's why we have those discussions.
And I think, and I don't mean to insult him at all, but our caller John, who's investigating this, I'd put him kind of in the middle category there. Anybody who, you can still believe or be leaning one way or the other, but if you're actually investigating it and looking and considering the evidence, I applaud you, and I'll talk to you all day long.
That earlier caller said he was investigating.
Let me just say something.
Sure.
I agree, that it's good to have a discussion, but for it to last 15 minutes when the guy keeps repeating the same thing over and over without listening to what you are saying anyway, and to discuss it or to talk about what he brought up is fine, but it just, I mean, like that last guy, it was a joke. His whole argument in the end, he tried to, last week it was the same thing. People, they try to sound logical and intelligent, and it's like, well, that's great, we're glad, you brought that up or whatever, but, it's basically this simple. The answer is so simple. It's the same thing like the guy, you're talking about John, who claims he's doing research or trying to figure this out. You only got to watch the History Channel. They've got all kinds of stuff on there about how the Bible was written, what was left in, what wasn't put in, even the interpretations of stories, which I find amazing, even what got in, like the story of the Antichrist, historically that was a story about something happening when they were writing the story. Somebody said, okay, this is what's happening to us. They wrote pretty close to historical account of it. The only thing they changed was the ending. And, because that's what they wanted to happen at that time. And, it's so easy to find these things out, really. I don't think these people really want to find it out, because it's religion itself, it's based on fear. And, it's probably pretty scary to have to go find out that the thing that you believe with all your heart might not really, be what you think.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I generally agree with you.
To me, I just, because it's true that last week I was going to talk exactly about the topic. Some guy calls in about fraud and stuff, and he was an idiot. I mean, I know you guys don't want to say he's an idiot, but, this isn't my TV show.
I've been known to call people like that idiots on the show, sir. You need to watch more.
I watch all the time.
It's a constant... Sir, hang on. First of all, is this Ray?
No, my name's Chris.
Chris. Okay, we got some confusion for control. Chris, hang on. Look, we've been doing this show for years now, and it's a constant struggle to try to give the religionists who call in a fair hearing, to try to respond to all the things that they bring up, right, and not just brush them off. Because, we're in the minority here. We are the people that are... the default assumption most people have is that we're wrong. So we're the ones that have to struggle to be taken seriously. So we try to respond to all the various claims brought up by all the callers, and sometimes it goes on too long. Okay. We're aware of that problem, and we fight against it all the time.
I'm not trying to edit your show or anything. I'm just saying, like, for instance, the first time I ever called in, it was in the spring of 2002, and there was two different people hosting it at that time.
Yeah.
And we talked, and I'm an atheist, and a lot of things we agree about, but when we started talking about other things outside of that, they didn't agree with me, and they hung up on me. Like, that simple. And actually what we were talking about was freedom of speech when he hung up on me. So, as an atheist, I got hung up on, when they didn't agree with me, they said... I can't remember those guys' names. The one guy with the shaved head, and then this other guy.
A different guy with a shaved head. There's something about this show that drives the host to shave his head and grow a goatee.
Yeah. But no,
It's the Picard syndrome.
I understand, like,
it's
justify the
Picard.
fact that you have a show about atheism. That there's gonna be, people are gonna want to, keep doing that. But I think you'll miss a lot of good calls too.
Okay.
Well, now yours is running on, sir. So thanks very much for your call.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I haven't been on here for 3 minutes. That guy was on there for 15 minutes.
Yeah, but what else do you have
a comment about?
Do you have a topic to bring up, other than complaining about the last guy?
I mean, because the best way for us to handle your complaint about the length of calls would be to hang up right now. But I don't want to do that.
Brett, what did you want to say last week? You can say it now.
All right, I'll talk about what I wanted to talk about last week.
Great idea.
You guys were talking about the Domino's dude.
The guy, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's setting up his Catholic community in Florida.
Okay. Here in Texas, I don't know if you've heard about it. It was in the Chronicle about 6 months ago, I think. They had something about it. About this, like a Mormon offshoot out in West Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically, the people who live out there that probably, are Christians or whatever, it doesn't really matter, but, they're really worried because the Mormons basically have more than doubled the population of that county, and they can now come in and elect whoever they want, and these people have been living there, some of them all their lives, and now they basically are, it's basically like their town's being overrun now because it hasn't happened yet, and the sheriff has gone out there to make sure nothing like Waco is going to happen and stuff like that. But, even his job, and he's trying to approach these people as a partnership and stuff, is in jeopardy because they could just, like that, because they now hold the majority, elect people in and change ordinances and things like that. And I think that's what's the scariest thing about...
I think that may come up in both cases, where we're going to have to deal with tough issues on the law about how much encroachment can there be.
And this has happened before. In fact, it's happened successfully before. The Hare Krishnas pretty much own town here and there, as I understand it. And there's even bigger efforts. There's these guys who want to move to Georgia.
South Carolina.
Christian
exodus.
There's fundamentalist Christians who want to move to South Carolina and set up and secede from the United States.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Sure, the one protection people have against those kinds of tactics are their state and federal constitutions, which put limits on what those people can do to the laws once they're in power.
Right. Well, I'm not sure here in Texas because it's scaring some people out there where this is happening. They're kind of worried about it at this point. At first it wasn't a big deal, and they wanted to be inclusive and understand, these people have a right to believe what they want. But at this point, they're kind of scared because the population just exploded in that little settlement that they made. So, I don't know. But at any rate, thanks for taking my call and everything.
You're welcome, Chris. Thanks for calling.
So it's more like saying, come on, people, use your brain a little bit especially when you call in to discuss something, to me, it's just kind of ridiculous, some of these people. That
you should check out...
listen to what you're saying, or even take it like the last guy, what makes me wake up? I'm done sleeping. That's what makes me wake up. Jesus,
it's almost never for us. It's almost never about actually trying to change the opinion of the person that called. Now, that last guy brought up... Huh?
I could try to understand or try to grasp it in some way. He sounded like I understand intellectually, but then everything he said was, but like I said, I'm not going to sit here and complain about that guy anymore. Thanks for taking my call.
Okay.
And, I watch almost every week that I can.
Cool, Chris. Thanks a lot,
man. We'll try and do... Handling calls is always a problem. And one of the things that Chris may not recognize is that we've got 3 lines. And if there's only only two of them are full at any time, then I'm liable to let somebody go on.
Yeah, but he has personal experience with having to wait a long time because last week there was that guy.
But
at the end of the show.
And as a note for Chris or any other atheist-friendly people, we're going to be going to dinner at Threadgill's on Riverside. We'll be there somewhere between 6:30 and 6:45. Riverside between Congress and First, as it shows in the street. Or on the screen, sorry. Today is March 12th. We're live. If it's not March 12th, we're probably not going to be at Threadgill's. But you're probably watching a rerun.
All right.
But yeah, the length of calls and who we take and
that's since day one on this show. That has been something we've struggled with. I mean, because
it might be fun to have like the rude atheist show.
We present ourselves as the people who actually think through all the ramifications of stuff, right? And we, it's very difficult for us to get a call and say, just say that's ridiculous and hang up on them, because whether something is ridiculous or not is not necessarily obvious. It's something that needs to be talked through and thought through, and publicly, so people can hear what the thinking is.
Yeah,
so it's tough. But yes, of course, we know sometimes it gets out of hand.
One of my best friends has been a longtime advocate of changing the way we handle calls completely. He would prefer if we did something more like Jim Rome's show, where the callers are expected to get on, say what they have to say, be articulate, get their point out quick, or they're just going to get dumped. And if they're stupid, hey, sorry, you're stupid. Oh, that's a dumb idea. Sorry, you don't understand what you're talking about. I don't want to do that because, and partly this comes from my background, and I'll exercise this as the host, is that there are people who are in positions similar to what I was in, John may or may not be one of them, where entertaining them and talking for just a little bit longer and actually asking questions may get to the key thing that allows them to exercise that sort of critical judgment and analyze their beliefs better.
And if John wasn't one of them, we got a lot of listeners out there, a lot of viewers. This is TV.
Worldwide, actually. We've been getting emails because of the podcast from around the world.
Yeah.
So hello to all of you, and thanks, and spread the word. Let's go on to Ray. How you doing?
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, Ray. Thanks for waiting.
You can control society through either fear or hope. All this time, the church has done it through fear. God-fearing, the fear that you have to answer to a higher power when you die. I mean, it's pretty simple, people. Anyway, the second thing is that guy that called, the one was there for 15 minutes, I think he has the God gene. The gene that, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Some people have it, some people don't.
But I want to mention something about that, because earlier I mentioned Daniel Dennett's new book, Breaking the Spell, Religion as a Natural Phenomena, and he talks about that. This whole God gene thing has come from studies where they've found you can sit people down in a chair with electrodes strapped to their skull and send electrical impulses into certain parts of their brain, and they will report sensations of like supernatural contact. And he doesn't take that all that seriously, because what doesn't get reported very much, apparently, is that the same research also managed to isolate a Jennifer Aniston part of the brain, where on one subject they found a spot in the brain which, if they stimulated that electrically, the subject would have thoughts of Jennifer Aniston. So yes, clear. And what Daniel Dennett says is, yes, obviously, for everything that people think, there's a part of the brain that's thinking about that. Duh. But he thinks too much
helps them to believe blindly in that without any.
Dennett is not so sure, and I haven't read his book all the way through. I know this mostly from interviews with him, and he's a pretty bright guy. I've been impressed by what he said before. I'm reserving judgment, is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
on how big a deal that is. Now, I mentioned before, I have never had feelings of the presence of God or supernatural things. Though, I mean, unless you count when I'm a little kid, afraid to put my foot down on the floor because there's this dark space under my bed. I mean, other than that, but I know other people who do report having those kinds of feelings. So maybe there is a genetic predisposition in some people, but there seems to be some reason to maybe not completely write it off. And certainly there's a darn good reason, since some of these people who have had those feelings are atheists now. Just because they may be genetically predisposed to have those kinds of feelings doesn't mean they're therefore incapable of being rational.
Right.
Now, one other thing before I go. I know these people are out there watching the History Channel and stuff. Well, there was two things. I don't know if it was banned from the Bible or the Devil's Domain. But in one of those, they had the writings where the whole idea for hell was invented by a priest in the 1600s. They weren't filling the pews, so they had to figure out a way how to get the people in the seats. Well, they came up with this whole elaborate hell thing which people wanted to hear what's going to happen to them after they die. Well, the Pew started feeling they made it more and more dramatic, and people.
I'm gonna stop you there because we're almost running out of time. It's too big of a subject to tackle on this one show. I don't buy that.
Makes sense, though.
I don't buy that for the very reason that the Apocalypse of Peter is way earlier than the 16th century and goes into great detail about exactly what you can expect from hell, right down to what happens to adulterous women and homosexuals. You know, the lake of fire and being tossed off mountains. It way predates the 16th century. Now, being able to
Maybe it was before that. I
respin
have to go back and watch it again.
Right. We're going to let you go. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks very much for your calls.
Yeah, to
thanks everyone
respin
for your
that
calls.
in the 16th century would be good. If you didn't get on, you can email tv@atheist-community.org, and we'll get your email and talk to you next week. Thanks.
Bye, folks.